Welcome back to Books with Duddy. Back today with my reaction to the series I Kill Killers. 3 books by S.T. Ashman. And I kind of put them all together as one reaction just because they're all relatively short books and I feel like they all follow similar formula. But I will be talking about spoilers in this, so if you want to avoid spoilers for this series, I would stop here. I do have a spoiler-free review up for this series as well, so you can check that out. Otherwise, let's get started. So I did enjoy this series overall. I believe I gave it a 7.9 out of 10. And the premise, while it seemed like a Dexter knockoff, just kind of reading the premise of the series, that also is kind of what hooked me in. And to start with Leah, I thought Leah was an awesome character. Obviously, she's imperfect. She has some issues. Her thing with escorts was just very odd to me, but considering how beautiful she's described, considering how much money she has, I don't know, just odd to me. But I've really enjoyed Leah's whole character arc from the first book until the last book so far, where, she whether she understands them or not, she clearly has feelings for Liam, who I'll get to in a second. But I liked how, logical, calculated. I liked that she had kind of like a overarching nemesis throughout all of these books in the train track killer. But let's talk about Liam before we get into that. And I absolutely loved Liam as well. There was a few things he did that bothered me. We had two opposite ends of the moral spectrum, right? Well, maybe not moral spectrum, but of like, who gets to be judge, jury, and executioner? Liam, before meeting Leah at least, was extremely by the book. Let's let the courts handle it. And Leah is obviously at the other end of that spectrum where she's going to take care of it herself. And I think Liam, they both inch a little bit closer to the other. Liam, I think, more than Leah. But that was, part of the books that I really enjoyed, that kind of push and pull. In the first book, it's like a cat and mouse game with Leah and Liam. And then in the next two, it's more of a push and pull type of game between them. One of the more morally ambiguous parts of the book is when Anton takes Leah to that cabin of, I can't remember, there's like 5 or 6 people in there. And, Leah throws the lighter to burn the cabin down. And then Liam finds out the one lady in there was a trafficker, but she was also a victim of trafficking herself. So, to me, just because you're a victim does not mean that it's okay for you to make somebody else a victim. That's my opinion. But I did enjoy that very morally gray area, especially I thought for that particular set of murders. And, the biggest twist to me in the whole series was when we learned the train track killer wasn't, I don't know how you say the name, like Mojka, I don't know. But it was actually Anton. I loved that twist. I was like, holy shit. Not that it really changed anything as far as like, the killer, but it was just a really big surprise. Because you definitely thought Anton died on those tracks. So that was one of my favorite parts of the series. And overall, I thought Jan Novak was a good villain, I guess. Again, I find him to be a morally gray villain. We don't... It's just a fine line of, vigilantism and that going too far, but the court's not doing enough sometimes. It's just a really fine line. Now, one of the things that I didn't like at all, it irritated me, was the ending to book 3. And after I read some quotes from the author, the ending made more sense, where there was just this unresolved tension, and just Leah and Liam was unresolved. It is unresolved. Maybe it's wishful thinking that they're gonna, end up together, and Leah's really capable of that, and Liam can, I don't know, I guess accept what Leah does, and if she refuses to stop, I don't know. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I wanted some sort of resolution to it. There just wasn't. And then I looked up, I said, when I started the series, I thought it was over. It was a trilogy. And then after I finished, I was like, feels like that's just not over. So I look up the book, and, the author says she purposely left it, open in case she wants to return to it someday. Well, I hate that. It's like, so I just don't get resolution now? Maybe someday, but I don't know. To me, if you're not sure you're going to write a 4th book, you wrap it up nicely, and if you come back later and you want to revisit these characters, you figure it out. But again, overall, there was still satisfaction, right, with every book. The conclusion to every book, there was still gratification, and everything wasn't open-ended and vague, but that just really bothered me in book 3. I really enjoyed this series. I said this in my review. I don't think it was anything groundbreaking, but it was well written, fast-paced, full of tension, like a thriller series should be, in my opinion. And I enjoyed the morally gray aspect of it, thinking about what side I'm falling on. And the characters where, despite Leah's faults and, some of the things that she does, I found myself really rooting for her. Similar to Dexter, you rooted for Dexter, or I think most people did, in a lot of ways. So I think this is more than just Dexter knockoff. It carves out his own path. And if the author does come back to the series, I'll definitely pick that book up and continue on with it. As is, I'm glad I read it. But if you've read this series, let me know what you thought. I wouldn't be surprised to see this as a TV show someday, adapted to a show. But yeah, let me know what you thought in the comments. And I appreciate you watching. If you could like and subscribe, I'd appreciate that. And I hope to see you back soon.